Hi YouTube, Potato here. Another episode in our learning series for DCS is going to include something that I feel brings a new life to DCS online multiplayer. I'm sitting here at the Bravo Farm again, facing about northeast in my DCS MI8 TV2, and we're going to go sling some cargo into combat. We're going to bring a multitude of things, potentially look at building a fob. We are going to start out with an LAV-25 here. It is a pretty windy day. Cloud cover seems to be around 3,000 feet, maybe 4,000 meters off, or sorry, 4,000 feet off the ground. Pretty standard for the Northeast Caucasus during this time of the year. We are going to queue up the second crate. I haven't started it yet. I have the first LAV crate internally. We're going to go other. The upper right hand corner, CLTD. We're going to go ground forces, light armored, and then the two crate that I chose was the LAV-25, which is this one right here. We're going to queue it up for cargo, and I'm going to talk about what sling loading entails. As a utility helicopter, one of the best things that you can do in combat is sling load some piece of armor or some troops into combat where it makes a difference on the battlefield. A lot of people love the scout and the attack and, you know, lasing people with ATGMs from 2, 3, 4 kilometers away. That's amazing and that's fun, and there definitely needs to be a place for that. But you don't see people very often slinging the correct amount of cargo or the correct amount of troops into combat. This is a utility aircraft at its heart. That means that the Mi-8 is slow, but to compensate for that, she's pretty armored, and you have the ability to carry things like guns and rockets on. I recommend that you start off actually foregoing any sort of weapons if you're new to sling loading, especially in online multiplayer, because the heavier you are, the harder it is for you to settle with power outside of ground effect, and the harder it is for you to be able to understand your sling. The next thing I want to go over is the controls that I use for sling loading. It's very simple in the Mi-8 here. We're going to go to adjust controls. To bring up the quadrant that you will see in the upper right hand corner, I'm going to use the external cargo indicator. This is going to allow me to line up the bottom of my aircraft without having like a physical person there telling me how close I am. The robot does good, the AI does good, but you know, it's not the same. You have a lot of disadvantage if you don't have that little quadrant there. You could possibly do it, you could definitely do it without it, but I recommend it strongly. Second is the cargo hook. This, in case there's a glitch on me hovering over it, that allows me to hook the cargo, or at least initiate the hook on the cargo. So that's if it's a windy day and it's hard for me to stabilize my aircraft over the cargo. You can press the cargo hook while you're hovering over it and it'll hook it for you. The next thing I'm going to hit is the tactical drop button, and that's going to allow me to unhook the cargo when I have placed it on the ground. And then I have an emergency unhook, which is this button here. That's in case cargo is going to potentially harm me, the aircraft, or present a dangerous situation to where I need to sacrifice the cargo. You can press the emergency unhook and not the tactical unhook. I'm not sure really what the difference is, but I'm sure if you read a manual somewhere, it'll tell you why. Next, I'm going to go over my philosophy for slinging a crate. When you have the crate selected, and you can do that in the Rotorheads menu, again, this is DCS Rotorheads Server, so some servers may be different, have different mods or add-ons attached to it, but the way it works in this server is you go to all cargo, you're going to select the LAV IFE in front of me. Now that it's selected, I can press this button here again. Just in case we missed it before, it is the external cargo indicator. Will bring up this green quadrant. If I wanted to be lazy and I wanted to not do things properly, I could press the cargo hook button right now as well, and it will hook me. It will go underneath my aircraft, and it will automatically hook me outside of any need to hover above my target in a display that I'll show you here. Now this brings you a couple of really strategic disadvantages. Remember, in DCS specifically with the helicopters, you need a lot of sensory input in order for you to be successful. and truthfully, you only have your eyes. Mark 1 eyeballs are really good, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's difficult. It's really hard, and I don't have $1 million sim that gives me, you know, 4 planes of motion plus up and down, or you know, I'm looking into getting a butt kicker, but I'm still hesitant about that because I'm not sure how it's gonna match my chair or feel. I'm not sure. But I've heard positive things about it, but that's for another topic and another time. I recommend doing the hard thing, which is once you, again, pull up your cargo, all cargo, one nearest you, you pull up your little quadrant. Now I'm going to bring it into a hover. I'm going to trim to where I believe a center trim would be. I'm going to release my parking brake and slowly pull my collective while torquing appropriately. I'm waiting for indications of the nose releasing from the ground. Now I'm going to retrim and pull collective a little more. Now you'll notice on the upper right hand corner of that quadrant there's a little bar that is it's vertical, and it's got a little circle that is moving up and down on that vertical line. That indicates your height. You want to keep your height somewhere in the red zone. And you want to bring your aircraft, again, the center of your aircraft, over to the middle of the cargo. What you'll notice is there's a dot with a circle around it that you need to have your aircraft in position for in order for you to be hooked. This is definitely a harder thing to do than just hooking the cargo on the ground, and truthfully, you can hook the cargo on the ground and successfully hover and then take tension and pull it correctly, but this is the proper way to do it. And here at Bacon and Potato Gaming, we definitely want to do things the fun way. So you can see here, it's underneath me. I'm now going to try and align myself up in the middle of the cargo here. And I'm going to try and take tension, and I'm going to pull my height. Again, keeping the cargo in the center as much as possible. To pull the height past the red zone. And as you'll see here, that will pick up my cargo. This view that I have here, I will show you the button for now. It's pretty handy. It requires you to open the cargo views, the button. It requires you to open this little window. If you don't do it, it'll open the window and then force your head down, and it just is a little awkward. Now we'll radio out. Bravo traffic, Doom 11, single MI8, Sling and LAV-25 to the battle zone, northbound. That's Bravo traffic. Now we are on our way. Just going to make a right-hand turn here. Make sure we're clear of any traffic. And it's really important when you're slinging a cargo to understand that the cargo has a huge effect on your aircraft. Now, if you notice, my radar altimeter is trimmed to 20 meters, and I know the length of my rope is roughly like 15 to 18 meters, something like that on this server. So I can tell that based off of my radar altimeter, like if I hear that beep go, I need to increase my collective immediately. That's going to tell me, again, this meter right here is going to tell me the height or the danger of my cargo from striking the ground. So you hear our loadmaster, our flight engineer, whoever this guy is, he's telling us that the load is swinging side to side 10. What does that mean? That means that inside of 10 meters square, it is swinging side to side, and that means the aircraft is going to be affected like a pendulum. It will oscillate your collective, and it will oscillate how your cyclic feels, and it's very foreign if you've never experienced it. Sling loading is a lot like floating on a cloud. But now that we're on our way, we'll check back in when we're near the battle zone, and we'll go over some tips to slow down correctly, position ourselves properly, and land without breaking our cargo. All units around Baxton, this is Doom 11. I'm in a single MI8. I've got a couple of LAVs underneath me. I'm going to start slinging some armor here to support the troops in the middle of that city. Just a heads up, I'll be approaching from south to north here on that road.
Copy. If you want to work together with a couple other ships, push 240 FM, should be channel 7 on your 828. We don't have any hips yet.
040, roger.
Yep, affirm, 040. Channel 7 on B828.
Chopper 1's at west.
Copy, ship 2 is on a green smoke, making a pickup.
One thing I want to preface is the importance of communication when flying online. Your location, who's around you, how you communicate with others in the battle sphere is going to help you identify where friendlies are, avoid fratricide, and honestly, it's really fun. SRS is awesome in the fact that if you get attacked, you can call in an attack helicopter to come in and shack your armored target you can't take care of. If you need a JTAC that gets killed to come in and support your base, you can get that in. But I just wanted to preference the importance of communications before we go back on the radio here. And I'll let you know again, DCS SRS is a free program you can download. There's a bunch of ways that you can get it. It's very easy for you to integrate that into your gameplay. And both Bacon and I really enjoy playing with others, specifically again on the Rotorheads server.
Good copy.
As we come into our target, we have to recognize that this is an active battle zone. We have to understand where the line of departure is, where our friendlies are holding the front line itself. If it is nearby, where our friendlies are shooting the active enemies, and if we're safe to approach through this corridor. Now through the SRS communication on 040, I'm able to coordinate with my friendlies a safe corridor through this MSR as I continue northward through the town. We're looking for LZ Psycho. Again, I'm very vigilant of my altitude via my radar altimeter. I am looking at my cargo here. My LAV on the internal is also doing very well. We've got no troops on the inside. It looks like we might be grabbing a JTAC at the end of this. But again, as we approach this landing zone, we'll call it in on the radio. All units be advised, Doom 1-1's approaching LZ Psycho 1 mic.
Grease, do you want me to drop off my load and take something else, or should I continue with my load?
But as we approach LZ Psycho, call it in on the radio, I'm focusing a lot on my speed and my descent rate. I want to descend to under 100 meters. I want to start to trim out my aircraft slightly, very slowly. I want to pull collective to keep my aircraft as level as possible. So as I'm hovering over the LZ, the biggest thing that I'm focusing on right now is my radar altimeter. I'm focusing on my descent rate. I'm focusing on the radar speed and direction of the Mi-8. There's a lot of traffic around me. There's a war that's going on here, so we've got lots of contact to the north. As my radar altimeter hits 20 meters, I'm going to pop my head out of the window. I'm going to look on the ground, and I'm going to press my tactical unhook when I see it hit. Tactical unhook will allow you to rest your cargo on the ground. Now that my cargo's on the ground and I have a second crate that belongs to this one, I'm going to land and assemble it. They're establishing chocks to initiate attack runs on the enemies to our west here. Here we've successfully slung a crate into combat. So as you can see, both crates are on the ground now. I'm going to unpack this crate, and you'll see our beautiful LAV-25 that we just slung into combat here. As I take off, I'm going to turn my radio on my Gerardo back up, and we're going to communicate with our friendlies. Where do we need to be going?
Southeast of that red smoke. Doom 1-1.
Go for Doom.
Green smoke should be to your 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock now. Is that mortar team not up to much?
Roger. I'll pick them up right now.
Alright, Chalks, we're not in a hurry this time. We're just going to take it easy. We're going to land right there together to get this second part down. The UH-60, remember not to sit down too close to it or it'll take your rotor.
Copy.
Green smoke is not psycho. Green smoke is a few mortars that Doom is picking up.
Copy that. We will hold the area and make sure it stays clear.
Copy, we're hanging around psycho right now. Getting a drop off.
Copy, we should be there in 2 mics.
Doom 1-1's touchdown for mortar team. Charlie 5, Doom 1-1's finals. Charlie 5. In a situation like this where it's really windy, we want to settle with power outside of ground effect because we're not sure how the wind is going to affect our trim. At least I like to do this. Obviously you can approach a landing zone many different ways, but after we settle with power, we just notice the buffeting is a lot less. It's just reduced stress on the airframe. It allows you a lot more control over where your trim is going to be. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you notice the trim is severely off, what center typically usually is, and that's because of, again, how windy the Caucasus are at this time of the year. So Doom 1-1, touchdown Charlie Fob. Next I'm going to show you some examples of sling loading in an active combat situation. Again, keeping in mind the same lessons that we learned before, we want to point into the wind, and we do things the fun way here at BP Gaming.
I've got a bunch of guys set up right now, looking south. The Fistone and Abrams, they can't do it, I don't know what can. But we need to start reinforcing north side of town, pretty bad like. Blue Commander was on right now.
Yeah, well, I don't have that position quite yet.
Are you actually working on it?
Yeah,
I got today.
Forward.
Still bossing units around, but anyway.
Forward. 10.
This is an example of a windy objective. The wind is blowing very strong to my nose. I'm in position. Now I'm hooked. I'm going to retrim. You can see it's not traditionally on center.
Take attention.
I'm going to take attention slowly.
3 meters
And
off
I'm
the
going
ground.
to pull into the wind. This is important. Don't pull out of the wind. Pull into the wind because they provide lift to your rotor blades.
The load is swinging far and up.
Yes, Abrams and crew won it. It's hard to tell. They're just in death load.
Alright. I'm inbound to Backsim right now. It's Doom 1-1, single MI8. I've got 2 tow Humvees I'm going to place to the south of where those T-55s and T-62s were coming in, and maybe they can get like a little sneaky side shot on them.
Copy, Godspeed.
The load is swinging side to side and...
So you might be asking yourself, how much power can I pull? How much collective can I pull with a cargo slung underneath you? I've got a tow Humvee slung underneath me. It's a couple 100 kilos, maybe a couple 1,000 kilos. I'm not sure what it is in the game. It's pretty heavy. Probably a couple 1,000 kilos. But nonetheless, it's underneath me. It's a very windy day here in the Caucasus, Northeast Caucasus, and I'm pulling a lot of collective. I'm going about 250 knots here with a load slung underneath me. Now, what are the dangers of that? There's a couple of them. The biggest one is the pendulum effect it's going to have on the cargo and the swinging that you're going to incur in a situation where you have to turn like this. Notice how my belly is always faced downward. I'm I'm seeing some power lines. I'm going to raise my attitude here, and I'm just looking for that red smoke on the right-hand side of the grid block. That's where those T-62s are going to be, where I'm going to drop these. But nonetheless, what we're looking for is smooth movements when you have lots of power in the collective. Here are the shack targets for the T-62. Our approach for this is going to be a little dangerous. Again, I'm looking at wind for an indicator, looking at smoke for an indication of the wind.
Touched down and is unloading troops.
High speed, low drag.
And you have to drift a little bit. You have to focus on making sure the cargo isn't swinging. Now, what happens if you have a situation where the load is swinging side to side, like this, where I get it intentionally to swing? How do you center it out? Well, first off, notice the effects on my aircraft. Not very good. Very dangerous. How you counter this pendulum is you look for how it's swinging. You try and center yourself as much as you can. And then you rudder in, and you cyclic in. You wait for it to counteract the pendulum, and you just slowly drift it out. Slowly drift it out. Now again, the load was swinging left to right. I right ruddered, right cyclicked, kept the same collective, and I waited for the pendulum effect to reverse itself, and I caught it. I had to stop it. And the way you do that is you turn the cyclic and the rudder back to center. Now I'm going to bring these Humvee troops across the river. That red smoke is again where the enemy is. I've got tow missile launchers here. They can hit targets pretty far away. Now they are soft targets, but targets indeed. All units is Doom 1. I inserted the hunter-killer ATGM team, and hopefully they shack one of those tanks. I'm going to send them in right now.
Copy, perfect. We'll see y'all soon.
As I'm headed back home here to the fob to the east, I just wanted to say thank you everybody for watching this video. Hopefully you saw something in this combat approach to sling loading that you can apply to your gameplay. A lot of sling loading entails approaching the landing zone properly, understanding how to read your instruments. Other tutorials really go over the physical aspects of using the instruments to maneuver your aircraft to center it, and I think that they display that better than I did. And you know, I figured that something that we were missing as a DCS community was a combat example of combat loading. So hopefully you saw how to practically apply your single-player combat loading experience to this multiplayer approach. Once again, thank you for watching Bacon and Potato Gaming. We hope you have a great day.